started. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. So we'll just start the session. Others can continue to join in as such. So thank you for being here. Would like to just, you can say, share some points on two important topics, which is cryptocurrency, which a lot of people have been asking us about, and sovereign gold bonds, which is again a interesting product from the government as such. So let me just take you through, you can say, what we'd be covering in the session. Yeah. So what are we looking to cover today? What is cryptocurrency all about? And why are we in fact even speaking about crypto? Why crypto? How to choose a cryptocurrency if you decide to go ahead? And how do you invest in cryptos, and all about crypto wallets and crypto exchanges to choose from. Last but not the least, we should always also understand the risks or why not crypto as well. So we'll just run you through a bit of that. Once we've done that, we'll take you through sovereign gold bonds, which are government bonds which are issued by the RBI linked to gold. So what are these gold bonds? Why should one even look at gold bonds? How do we invest, and who should not be looking to invest? Some of the points to cover during the gold bond uh, presentation as such. And of course, as we've been mentioning, crypto or gold bonds, if either of them or any of them do make sense in your portfolios. And during the presentation, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. We will anyways have questions at the end of the session, but during the session in any of the particular topics, if you've got questions, please feel free to ask as such. If you're all ready, then might be you should just put in a word, either crypto or SGB on your chat, so that we know we're good to start this session. Yep. Okay. Great. As expected, everybody is ready for crypto. So what exactly is crypto? Well, crypto is actually a digital currency. It's created by code. I mean, that's the only thing that I can tell you. I'm not a software professional to tell you what type of code goes behind crypto. Each cryptocurrency has been created with different, you can say, technology behind it. When I say each, means a lot of people know about Bitcoin and a couple of other currency, but there are more than 4,000 odd currencies which are currently traded. And if you were to see how many currencies have been created, that number is close to 10,000 currencies that have been created over a period of time. So there are plenty of different currencies that have been created. Basically, it's digital money. There is no, you can say, physical aspects to it. What is different from any other form of currency? Well, it is decentralized. There is no government control. There is no government which issues these currencies as such. It is various communities and groups of people who come together, and they've initiated various cryptocurrencies, the biggest one being Bitcoin. Anyways, we'll take you through some of the cryptos that are more popularly traded as well. The other thing about crypto, as with, let's say, with the dollar, is that it is accepted and traded worldwide. There is no crypto which is restricted to India, restricted to China, or to the US. It's a global currency. That's the reason why they call it as a cryptocurrency, because it's traded or accepted globally. And of course, this is like the newest global asset class. There is a lot of controversy behind it, but yes, it is, you can say, a globally accepted currency as such. So pretty much you could say just a quick snapshot about why, what is cryptocurrency as such. Next, let me take you through, you can say, why are we even having a session on crypto? Yes. Some of the advantages of crypto basically are that it can be instantly transferred anywhere uh, just by using your system. There is no intermediary that is involved in between. An exchange will do it for you. It's accepted worldwide, as I already mentioned. Decentralized currency, because Each cryptocurrency has been issued by different sets of people. So I think somebody has got their audio on. Would request you to go on mute so that it doesn't disturb the presentation as such. Next, you can say we speak about low inflation risk, especially to currencies like Bitcoin and things where there is limited supply. Each currency comes with its different thing. Safe and secure. This is another controversial point, but crypto believers would like us to believe that this is the most secure investment avenue as such. So we've spoken why to look at crypto, but then how do you choose a crypto? As I mentioned that there are more than 4,000 currencies that are currently there. So how would you go about choosing a particular cryptocurrency over the other? So I've split the points as if you were to be an investor. When I speak about an investor, someone thinking about a minimum of 3 to 5 years, if not longer. Trader, speculator, well, in cryptocurrency, 5 minutes is also a good trade. It's open 24/7. So as a investor, what you would need to be looking at when you're choosing a cryptocurrency, the technology that has gone into that particular currency and the kind of team members, the kind of team that has come together to create that specific cryptocurrency. That's like an important determinant to understand the stability of the currency as such. And when any currency is, you can say, cryptocurrency is created, there is a white paper that is issued. This white paper is freely available on the internet. If you were to just type in on Google saying white paper of, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin, whichever currency you want, you will get it freely. It's not a confidential document. This actually gives you a lot of information about that specific cryptocurrency, like purpose and vision for behind the creation of that currency, on what terms it's been created, supply details. Like, for example, Bitcoins, they've mentioned that there will be only 21 million Bitcoins that can be created or mined, as they call it, various other details. And more importantly, how do the creators, how much do they hold, how do they benefit from transactions? Because there are cryptocurrencies where you can say with every transaction there is a transaction fee that goes to a creator. So various details, all of it is available in the white paper. It's a great read. It's a pretty lengthy one, and in certain cases very technical, but if someone really wants to get into this seriously, then I would definitely recommend to look at this white paper. Very interesting. Next is, what is the purpose of the token? Token, cryptocurrency, coin, means there are various terminologies for the same instrument as such. So, and what about the community that is supporting that particular crypto? These are again two important aspects which will help you understand what exactly it means. If it's a technical person, he will you can say relate to it. When we speak about the Ethereum concept is very, very different from what, let's say, a Bitcoin, and Dogecoin was not even meant to be a serious currency, but it is one of the more popular currencies right now. So these are few of the points that you would want to consider as a investor, as a long-term investor. Now coming to someone who's looking to trade or speculate in crypto, then what do you look at? You will look at price and volume action, because that's where you will get to know as to which are the currencies that are currently, you can say, trading maximum, and what is the kind of liquidity, what is the kind of volatility. Here, one warning, you need to be aware that cryptocurrencies, because they don't have a fundamental, you can say, valuation base, they can move completely based on sentiment. And there are operators like Elon Musk, Wallace, and others operating out of US and some out of Russia as well, who will, you can say, manipulate uh, the movement of these smaller currencies at least. Something to be very watchful about. Then we're talking about community and trading sentiment. Means we've seen the movement in various currencies, in fact, various stocks as well in the US, which are linked to the Reddit trade. That is something which will really help you understand where you can say the bulk of the trading is happening. Another point for someone who's wanting to trade, he or she needs to understand and choose a currency which has got multiple exchanges which are listed, because in case there is a downtime in a particular exchange or something like that, your trades can actually get stuck if you have just a single exchange which is trading in that particular currency. So these are a few points in terms of how do you choose a cryptocurrency. I'm not, you can say, speaking about any examples, because right now, if we're looking at it from an Indian point of view, we're still in a gray area wherein is crypto legal, is crypto illegal. Most of the banks are now not allowing funds to be transferred to crypto exchanges. So a lot of confusion is there. Hopefully in another month or so, this should get, you can say, sorted out. Means actually that's one reason to have this session today, so that we're just speaking about this topic and we are well prepared as to what comes up from the regulator point of view over the next few weeks as such. Any questions on this? Happy to take. Otherwise, I will continue and we can take up questions in a few minutes as well. Just shared some popular, you can say, cryptocurrencies for you to have a look. Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, Cardano. I mean, these are some of the more liquid ones which are trading volumes and amongst the larger cryptocurrencies as such. But you have plenty to choose from. Next, we spoke about how do you choose a currency. But when you buy a currency, since this is all, you can say, a digital currency, you need to store it somewhere as well. So I'm just giving you some options. Means you generally buy a currency and store it in a crypto wallet. Here are the types of wallets that are available. Basic distinction: hot or cold wallets. A hot wallet is basically one which is connected with the internet. This is a great option for people who are looking to transact in small volumes, want to do quick transactions. Of course, means Bitcoin was initially created to also facilitate transactions. There are, you can say, various establishments in the US which have started accepting Bitcoin as a currency as such. So there a hot wallet is helpful. But someone who is an investor, a long-term investor, from a safety and security point of view, you would want a wallet which is not connected to the internet, because we've had multiple instances where there have been cryptocurrency wallets which have been logged into phishing attack and things like that. So from a security point of view, a cold wallet is better. Then we've got web wallets and software wallets. Web wallets are something like a email ID. Basically, you just have a login and a password. You can say login, access your currency, transfer it, whatever you want to do, you can do as such. Software wallet is again pretty much similar, based on a software. Then we've got desktop wallets and mobile wallets. Self-explanatory, but again, it's just different ways to store your wallet. Desktop or a mobile wallet is, you can say, more safer compared to a web wallet, because at least you have it on your, you can say, desktop or your mobile. Then we've got these hardware wallets. This is, you can say, more beneficial for people holding on to larger amounts of cryptocurrency, because these are not connected directly to the internet.
Sir, one question.
Yes.
Shankar. Sir, these currencies, do they have any expiry date?
No.
Because nothing.
No,
Once you put it in cold wallet and we forget, after a year you can come back, still it will be valid.
Yes, it is valid. There is no, you can say, validity period or expiry period for these cryptos as such. So once you bought it, you can actually hold on to it for as long as you intend to keep it, and it will be safe. So if you intend to keep it for a long time, then the cold wallet is a better place to store this currency.
Okay, another question is, suppose I buy Bitcoin, one Bitcoin,
Yes.
and I store it, and then later on new coins, as you said, 4,000 new coins are coming up. So these are highly, 4,000 coins are already there. New coins may be coming next year also.
Absolutely.
So each one I can exchange it. So I can buy 1,000 Dogecoin. All these are mutually, we can exchange it. Or if I have a Bitcoin, I have to sell it, convert it into dollar or rupees. then again go to Dogecoin and buy it? How is that exchange happening?
No. So the thing is that there are various exchanges where you can trade. So you can either convert it directly as well. Let's say if you want to buy, as you mentioned, 1,000 Dogecoins, then that much equivalent in Bitcoin can be converted to Dogecoin as well. There is no thing that you have to convert it into dollars and then again buy. That's a choice.
So pretty much we'll have fractional accounts as well. So suppose because let's say one Bitcoin may be worth like several lakhs. So I don't have to sell all the Bitcoins. I'll have some partial after converting it. Fractional ones will be allowed.
Yes, 0.001 and multiples. So because otherwise for the current Bitcoin cost is about 27 lakhs or thereabouts, means of course that is 2 days back. It might be very different today. So it's not that you have to buy only in multiples of 27 lakhs. You can go and buy for 1,000 rupees worth of Bitcoin as well. So to that extent, there is no concept of a full currency as such. The other smaller currencies, yes, means like a Dogecoin, which is you can say worth 20 cents. I don't think anybody will speak about a fractional Dogecoin because it's, let's say, 15 rupees per Dogecoin. That way.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. And
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Suraj, hi. This is Hari.
Yes, Hari. Please tell me.
Hello, Suraj. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, Suraj, what drives the price point of each of these coins? Like, for example, in the mutual funds case, the number of people investing in and trading is deciding the price of a particular fund on a daily basis. Similarly, what gets what decides the value of a particular Bitcoin on a particular point in time? Or a cryptocurrency? What decides the price of a particular cryptocurrency?
Sure. So
is it just people buying and selling alone, or is it getting invested in some other companies and things like that? I just wanted to understand.
Sure. So crypto, in fact, completely based on sentiment. There is no intrinsic value in any of the cryptocurrencies as such. So it's purely driven by sentiment and you can say demand and supply kind of thing as such. There is no thing saying that actually intrinsic value of Bitcoin is 20 lakhs. So it's trading at 25 lakhs or it's trading at 40 lakhs. So like 2 months back, Bitcoin was trading at 50 lakhs. You can say earlier this week it was trading at 25 lakhs. So, but nothing changed in terms of value. It was purely sentiment driven. And you can say the other factor when we come to the risks I will speak about, that there are regulatory risks as such. So it's purely driven on sentiment. There is no intrinsic value that is there in terms of any of these currencies as such. When we speak about mutual funds, when we speak about stocks, so mutual funds will depend on their underlying stocks that they hold in their portfolio. Stocks will again depend on, you can say, performance of the companies and things like that, and to a certain extent based on demand, supply and liquidity. In cryptos, it's purely sentiment and demand supply. There is no, you can say, fundamental value that you can actually create. You cannot value a particular crypto and say that this cryptocurrency is worth so much or that cryptocurrency is worth so much as such. Yep. I'll continue. So next means the last type of wallet is the paper wallet, which is basically a QR based wallet. This can actually be used for transferring the wallet or the currency to another person as well. Not recommended, but again, it's a small option which is also available. We've spoken about the wallet, so now I'm just going to speak to you about how do you choose an exchange. Means a few weeks back, as I know, there were more than 100 odd exchange options available in India itself. So globally, there are thousands. So how do you choose a particular exchange over the other? So just giving you some inputs over here. One is background and reliability in terms of since these are digital currencies and digital exchanges, anybody can go about setting up an exchange very easily. It's just a program, nothing else. So like an app. So without, you can say, any formal permissions or anything of that sort. So you need to actually, I think I've left that sentence incomplete there, but you need to choose one which has a strong backing or a background. And of course, reliability is an important issue because we've seen various exchanges having downtime and outages when you most need those exchanges for a transaction. So these are two important criteria to look at as to stability of the promoters and reliability of the exchange platform in terms of availability. Next, means if we're speaking about the larger cryptos like a Bitcoin or Ethereum, that will be available on each and every exchange. But then if you're choosing the smaller currencies, then you have to see which exchanges provide those currencies as such. Next, in terms of platform and user interface, again, self-explanatory, that should be having a low downtime and easy to use interface. Next, method of purchase and fee structure. Right now, the bank transfer, credit, debit card options have been disabled by all the exchanges in India. That is because of, you can say, banks, you can say, not allowing these transactions to go through the exchange. So it's more that they're structuring it via the peer-to-peer model. But going forward, again, completely depends on the regulation. But once all the options are available, then you will choose based on what options that you have. Here, there is also options like currency exchange, then PayPal, Paytm, various options. If the Indian government gives the go-ahead, then you'll have many more payment options as well coming. Next is the fee structure. Each of these exchanges have very different fee structures for different currencies. I have not done a comparative analysis so far about the thing because there are so many permutations and combinations, and currently, as I said, regulation is holding some of these innovations back as well. But we will definitely come to it when we have an option. Listed some of the more larger exchanges: WazirX, CoinSwitch, Kuber, ZepPay, Unocoin. These are some of the larger exchanges with, you can say, each of them having more than 1 million user base currently. Of course, just going by the number of user base, you cannot choose an exchange. We've had instances as recent as a month back where more than $3.5 billion worth of cryptocurrency, an exchange in Israel has, you can say, shut down. They're still wondering how do we recover that. That's why, so I'll cover that on the risks to crypto as well. Just speaking about some of the risks which crypto have, means it is a currency of the future, but then nothing comes without risk, right? So just highlighting what are the kind of risks that crypto has as such. One is that there is no current regulation. Various governments, I mean, China is pretty much banned crypto. India is dilly-dallying now for the last almost 6 months whether to ban, not to ban. Let's see what happens. US has launched multiple you can say legal cases or inquiries on crypto exchanges, on cryptocurrency founders. A lot of regulatory risks that are there. But otherwise, if today there is a fraud in terms of cryptocurrency, there is no regulator who will be able to help out in this case because there is no regulations on this as such. Next, we'll speak about cyber attacks and phishing. Means software and digital have an advantage that they're easy to, you can say, move, easy to operate, but that also comes with a lot of risk in terms of cyber attack and phishing. A lot of exchanges have had these attacks and lost huge amounts of cryptos from their wallets and things like that. Risk of exchange and wallet. Hopefully these things will get resolved as we move forward, but right now all these risks do exist. Then we're talking about price fluctuations. We've had, you can say, various instances of price drops in cryptos of 60 to 80%. We've also had 10,000% of gains in 2021 in some of these currencies as well. But what was the most shocking thing was recently a currency actually went down by 100% straight away from 65 to 0 in a matter of 2 days. So I'm saying that is the kind of fluctuations that we have to live with. These are some of the risks that exist with cryptocurrency as such. We'll continue further. We've spoken all about crypto, which is like the newest asset class. So from there, let me take you and speak about the oldest asset class known to man, which is gold. Today, we're not going to speak about gold as such. We'll want to highlight more in terms of sovereign gold bonds, which are government gold bonds as such. These are issued by the RBI on behalf of the government. This is just a thing about gold as to how they've done. So what are these sovereign gold bonds? These are bonds which are issued by the RBI on behalf of Government of India. So it's basically a Government of India bond. The price of the bond is linked to gold. That is what differentiates it with any other bond that the government is issuing as such. So most important, it is safe and secure. You don't need to hold on to physical gold in this case. It comes with a government guarantee. It also offers 2.5% of interest during the period that you hold the gold as such. It's paid out every 6 months, annual interest of 2.5% paid out every 6 months. Easy to store, easy to liquidate, and there is no question of, you could say, quality of gold over here because it's all a financial instrument and not physical gold as such. Some advantages I've already covered. In terms of liquidity, these gold bonds are issued in demat and in physical form. If it's allotted in demat form, you are able to sell it at any point in time on the exchanges. Physical form liquidity is a challenge in terms of you'll have to only sell it back to the government, which is the RBI in this case, wherein you can do it after 5 years, but otherwise these bonds will mature after a period of 8 years. And whatever income that you make on these bonds are exempt from tax. Here, cost effective, tax efficient, I've covered it. Means since a lot of people are aware of this, means I will take questions on this rather than trying to run you through the presentation as such. These are, you can say, a slide where how are gold bonds better than physical gold and gold ETFs. If anybody has got a question, I will take it up. Otherwise, I'm anyways going to share the slide as well. Most important benefit, 2.5% interest that is paid out on these bonds, and the fact that if you're going to hold it for the 8 years, whatever gains you make will be exempt from tax. Whereas the gold ETF and the physical gold are taxable. Of course, you don't have to hold on to like how you have to keep physical gold safe. Here, you don't have to worry about that aspect as well. Yeah.
So Suraj, one question. Let's say I buy 1 gram gold, BSG, sovereign gold bond.
Yes.
And for 8 years, the price of gold, let's say per gram is right now 3,000 rupees. I don't know the exact number. Let's say 3,000 rupees.
Okay.
And after 8 years, the price of gold, for example, let's say it's 5,000 rupees at that time.
Okay.
So when I make 2,000 rupees, because 3,000 rupees I bought, after 8 years, it's 5,000.
Yes.
So the 2,000 rupees is tax free.
Yes. The 2,000.
So in addition to the 2,000, I will get every 6 months.
Every year, 2.5%, which is paid out every 6 months.
Okay. Okay, sir. So basically, every 6 months, I get 2.5% annual return.
Yes.
So that means 1.25%.
Yes.
Plus, I also get the upswing. Correct. And the other one is it's guaranteed. We are assuming that the price of gold is like is a proxy for inflation. So inflation adjusted is what we are trying to play here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, that's the thing as is. It's anti-inflation, as you could call it. And then the other thing is that the 2.5% interest, and because gold is dollar denominated, there will be, you can say, weakness in the rupee over this period as well, which will add to the returns. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Suraj. Anita here.
Yeah. Hi, Anita.
Yes. Suraj, so the minimum tenure is 8 years, is it? Or is there anything
No,
below
so
8 years also can invest?
sure. So the thing is that there are two ways of investing in the gold bonds. One is you can say with a demat account, and the other is without a demat account. So if somebody is buying it through the demat account, then there is no lock-in at all. In the sense, now 6 months later you want to sell it, you can. 1 year later you want to sell it, you can. So there is no tenure for under the demat mode. If somebody is applying without a demat mode, then what happens is that you cannot sell it unless you go and get it dematted at that point in time, or hold on for 8 years, or the next option is that after 5 years, every 6 months, the government, that is the RBI, will give you an option to sell it back to the RBI at the price that is prevailing at that point in time. So you have a option after 5 years. Every 6 months, you will have an option to sell it back to the RBI.
Okay, so the best option would be to go with the demat option, account option.
Yes, that is the preferred option.
Oh,
Unless
thank you.
sure, unless somebody has got a thing that I want to keep it for 8 years, then it doesn't matter physical or demat. But otherwise, yes, a demat option will be better.
Okay.
Sure.
And Suraj, this is Mujahid here.
Yes.
And if we go for a dematted or without demat option, I mean, like suppose I want to, sell it off in 1 year or 6 months or 2 years, let's say.
Okay.
Even then it will be tax free, or is it
No,
like,
no.
I mean, there's a lock-in period?
The tax free will be only if you hold it till maturity, because the government does not want you to trade on these bonds. So the tax free benefit is available if you hold it till the 8-year period.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Sure. So I've, you can say, taken you through both crypto and gold bonds. Now we'll speak about what makes more sense for everybody in their portfolio. So let's speak about some of the positives for cryptocurrency. These have been the, you can say, as an overall asset class, these have given the highest returns over the last 10 years. So that's one reason why we cannot ignore, and we've closely been watching. Of course, in the last 2.5 months, they've dropped by 50%. So to that extent, they're much better today than what they were a few months back, because the prices are lower. So that is one reason to, you can say, look at crypto. Globally accepted, easy liquidity, some of the major positives. Negatives, as I've already highlighted, they're not regulated, high risk, very volatile asset class, and they don't have any fundamental value. So at no point in time will you be able to say that a Bitcoin actually has this value and it trades at this price. You will never have that. These are the positives and the negatives of crypto. Positives and negatives of gold bonds. Gold has always been a great hedge against market uncertainty. Tax-free returns, of course, only for that 8-year period. Additional 2.5% interest, which you will get irrespective of how gold does, and benefits from a weak rupee. So you're hedging your rupee weakness as such. Negatives for gold, or let's say gold bonds, unlikely to give you very high returns. There will be periods like what happened in 2020 where gold just shot up, but otherwise, over a period of time, I would say it'll give you better than an FD, but I don't think returns can be compared to fully market-related, market-linked investments. So what should you choose? Cryptocurrency, if you're going to invest, unless you're, you can say, a long-term investor, which I guess the whole purpose of the cryptocurrency market is that they trade 24/7 and get you to track it very, very closely. If you're that kind of a person who wants to keep your portfolio engaged and active, then might be you can explore crypto. Of course, I would say once the regulation permits. In terms of Gold bonds, it is a diversification in the portfolio. You can hold on to it in case you have a long-term view as such. So I wouldn't, you can say one is better than the other because everybody has a different requirement. And you can of course have both in your portfolio once regulations permit as well. So I think we will be logging off now, so we may have to join back in. But let us take up questions on both crypto and you can say gold bonds.